Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jerry Sansing. This is the What's Going On in Corpus Christi show, essentially covering taxpayer issues. I am the president of the Corpus Christi Taxpayers Association, and we've got some problems here that need to be discussed with you fine folks. And I hope that you will go online or look up your city council member in particular, since we've got some real problems with the city around here versus taxpayers. We've got the tax appraisal coming up with the county, which collects all types of tax money for the school districts, Del Mar College, streets, you name it, city, and all the money that you spend at the county level and so forth and so on. Not to speak of state and federal. So we're being taxed to death, and that's one of the reasons that I am a great proponent of a taxpayers association, and I think the taxpayers need to have a voice for a change. And the only way we're going to exercise those voices is to stick together and go vote. Or if you'd like, contact me at gsansing@gmail.com, and let me know that you're interested in the Corpus Christi Taxpayers Association and what this group is trying to do for you as a taxpayer. Now, with that being said, beginning on June the 7th, which is a Sunday, the Public Access Users Group and the Public Access Channel 10, which is on cable Grande and Time Warner, then we have the public access there, and this show airs on that as well as on the YouTube. So if you go into YouTube and put in the producer's name, which is Janelle, Janell, Bennett, Bennett, then you can come up with what's going on in Corpus Christi. And I think most of the time also it's under my name, Gerald, Gerald Sansing, Gerald Sansing. And you can pick up this show and also my hour show, news show that I do on a weekly basis, which is called South Texas News and Reviews. So beginning the June the 7th, it will be the following Monday, I guess, on the 8th. Then this show is going to be aired at 8:30 to 9 p.m. on Monday evening on Channel 10 Public Access, and then from 5:30 to 6 p.m. on Saturday. So beginning in June, if you're a regular watcher on this one during the week, the times will change. I think the Monday night remains the same, but then we've got the Saturday date. We do that by lottery. Now, the first item I'd like to speak to the taxpayers about tonight is one that I'm personally involved with also. I was one of the original 5 people with along with the Friends of the Coliseum, who went down and signed a bond for $30,000, which was outrageous at the time, but we signed it all. I did it with about 4 other individuals, concerned citizens, and we signed that bond in Judge Klager's court in order to halt the demolition of the Memorial Coliseum. And if you remember, that Coliseum was a memorial to just under 400 Nueces County veterans that perished in World War II. So it was a war memorial, folks. And that's where all the venues took place in Corpus Christi. Now, architecturally, that building was highly rated. It won awards at, I think, one of the World's Fairs for being an outstanding freestanding roof, and then they built the building underneath it. So it was freestanding with very deep concrete pillars there on the bayfront, and it was, it was the place that people had graduations, all types of venues. Rock stars were in and out of that, some of the very best in the history of rock and roll, and other country western people, and other venues. And then the Ice Rays were in there in the beginning of their existence here in Corpus Christi. Now, along came the American Bank Center, which was probably another 50% over the budget that was said to the taxpayers we're going to put this thing together. It costs us somewhere between, I think, $700,000 and $1 million a year of your tax money, folks, the city tax money, to keep the doors open down there. The management company's making the money, And all the money that goes for the venues and stuff, it goes up into the upkeep of that. And it costs taxpayers money if it did not do what they said it was going to do and bring revenue into this town. And then they don't have parking down there, so you go down and get skinned for $5, $10 to park when you go down to pay for going into some different show or whatever down there. So you're being ripped off at a big time. Now, the city elite, I should say, okay, I'm not an elitist. I just can't stand it when I see that happen in my neighborhood. It's very counterproductive as far as I'm concerned. But we have a city council, and I call them the real estate cartel down there, and they decided that they would let the Coliseum go derelict to the point where everybody wanted to tear it down. So they finally accomplished that with holes in the ceilings and so forth, and they began demolition before they even asked the historical societies, local, state, and national, to take a look at that extremely fine architectural entity down there. Like I say, it won an award. Mr. Colley's the one that designed that. So a lot of us citizens wanted to maintain that roof structure down there and made proposals, and one architect locally, one of the 5 that signed that bond that was sued by the city, along with me, we went down and the architect drew up some drawings and did a video on what that thing would look like as a centerpiece of the bayfront down there. If they just remove all of the building below the roof, it's freestanding. And then go ahead and spend a little bit under $1 million to put a new 20-year roof on that thing. And then that would provide a lot of shade down there to people that wanted to have outside venues and so forth and go down and enjoy the bayfront. That didn't fly with the city, so they tore it down after the 13th Court of Appeal said that no, they agreed it needed to come down. Now, the city then turned around and sued the 5 of us that signed that bond for $65,000 originally, said it was damages. Now, I can't believe what's happened since then, okay? Now, our court case, we appealed that to the 13th Court of Appeals, and then I'll give you the chronology on this thing as we go, okay? Now, the 13th Court of Appeals hearing was, and it says no oral arguments, that was just held a week or so ago on April the 28th, and no oral arguments went that the Friends of the Coliseum who were being sued and the city who was suing the Friends, the 5 of us, could go down and make any comments about that proceeding with the appeals attorney, or not attorneys, but the lawyers down there, okay? The members, the judges. Okay, now, they had that argument, or they had that hearing on April 28th, which was a Tuesday of last week. Then they rendered an opinion on Thursday, which was April the 30th. I've got a copy of that here. It's a 7-pager. And then all of a sudden, the news media got a hold of it. Channel 6 ran a short version of this, but the Caller Times with Mr. Matt Woolbright, who wrote this column, or this story, it's on Saturday's paper yesterday, May the 2nd, and it says, Friends of Coliseum wins battle. Okay, city's attorney says fight is not over. Now, I'm going to read some of this, and then I want to make some comments about this, because this is a large amount of taxpayer money, and this has stirred up a lot of feelings on both sides. Should it have been torn down, and should it not have been? Okay. So it says, an appeals court has ruled a group of local preservationists who lost a legal battle with the city of Corpus Christi over the demolition of the Memorial Coliseum wouldn't have to pay damages for the delays they caused after all. Still, the case that has spanned nearly 5 years isn't over. The ruling from the 13th Court of Appeals, which was issued Thursday, is a reversal of a trial judge's ruling in 2012 that had ordered 5 members of the Friends of the Coliseum nonprofit to pay a $30,000 bond. The bond was designed to cover damages to the city caused by the demolition's delay if the Friends of the Coliseum ultimately lost the legal tussle, which they did. Okay? The attorney representing the Friends of the Coliseum said the higher court's ruling, which argues the Friends of the Coliseum qualify for payment less than $30,000 because the city suffered no damages as a result of the delay, should lead to a quick resolution. The case will go back to the trial judge if the two sides don't agree on a mutual dismissal. There weren't any damages, and that's what the Court of Appeals found too, said Abel Cavada, the group's attorney. Corpus Christi City Attorney Miles, I think it's Risley or Risley, doesn't see it that way. However, and the city, and I'll have to go to the back page to continue this, sorry about that. It says, and the city intends to continue pursuing the case. I do not agree the city lost nothing, Risley told the Caller Times. Whenever a project is delayed by the action of a third party, the city will almost always have some damages as a result of the delay. The city's lawsuit, which was brought by former city attorney Carlos Valdez, was against 5 individuals from the group who signed the bond. Those individuals are George Clower, the group's leader, Akbar Abba, Gerald Sansing, Bruce Olson, and Lillian S. Wallbaser. Okay? And I'm the Gerald Sansing in there. Okay? Thursday's ruling came as a surprise to at least one of them. Normally the 13th Court of Appeals is going to side with the city, so we were floored, just flabbergasted with the ruling, Sansing said. That was my reaction to it, folks. I've been involved with opinions from the 13th Court of Appeals before, and they have never gone against the city or Del Mar College until recently. I'll discuss that later. Okay? The court's findings was largely based on a clause in the contract with the demolition company that shielded the city from damages in the event of court-issued injunction, Cavada said. If the city doesn't have to pay damages, why should anybody else, he said. They didn't incur damages, plain and simple. Risley declined to opine on how much the city should be owed in damages, but said that will be a part of the next legal process. The case was remanded to the trial court, therefore we will proceed in a manner that appropriately projects the taxpayer's interest in being fully compensated for damage to the taxpayer, Risley said. Cavada claimed the city used the lawsuit to discourage people's participation in the democratic process, a tactic he said was effective because many of the Friends of the Coliseum group thought they could be named in the case and be forced to pay large sums of money. The city's initial request to the court was about $65,000. Risley had strong words for that claim, saying a democratic process wasn't at work by the group in this instance. Okay? They did not use the democratic process, but instead tried to use the overriding power of the judiciary to prevent democratically elected representatives from achieving publicly desired improvements, Risley said. Risley said he didn't have an exact time frame, but that the resolution was on the scale of months away. Okay? Now, I've got certain questions for that, folks. I know an awful lot of people in this town that were absolutely horrified that number one, that the real estate cartel city council decided to go ahead and yank down the Coliseum, that memorial to dead war veterans from this area, and put up what they tried to do as the destination Bayfront. Okay, it was all conceived behind closed doors as far as I'm concerned. Okay, it's all a backdoor politician and real estate and high roller ploy to screw the taxpayers out of a bunch of money and put up something down there at your expense, $45 million destination Bayfront, and let you pay for that. And then I will state that they did spend a lot of money on a reroute down there of Shoreline, and that's one big abortion abomination as far as I can tell. I've driven it a couple of times and it is miserable, folks. It's an accident waiting for a place to happen. And they've screwed a lot of downtown businesses because when you're headed out from down Shoreline towards the north, I believe it is, then you can't take a left-hand turn on any side street to go down to some of those businesses. And then they've got all that vacant property for sale for speculators and so forth, for hotels, motels, and all this good stuff. And folks, nobody's going to buy that, as poor as that bayfront looks right now. And then you've got that big vacant lot. So I'm going to go ahead and ask some questions about this new city attorney. I thought that the worst thing that could ever happen to Corpus Christi, Texas, and the city taxpayers, folks, would be to have Carlos Valdez down there as a city attorney. He was a former district attorney around here. Then he took his retirement from that and moved over to the city at a big fat salary. And he can't read a contract. That contract between A&R Demolition Company, folks, and the city of Corpus Christi states very clearly, if there is a court-ordered halt and demolition, nobody suffers any damages whatsoever. So if the city did, they've broken their own contract with A&R. Now, I'm just a poor dumb PhD biochemist and microbiologist, and I can't read the English language, but I can read and understand that contract. And why these attorneys can't, I don't know. Now, I've got some questions of Mr. Risley and the city fathers before I get off on another tangent. Okay, my questions would be, is the city attorney speaking for the entire city council, city manager, and all city taxpayers when he makes these wild statements in here that he's going to pursue that? Who's given him the authority to do that? Has that been discussed in closed session? It hasn't been closed in open session or discussed in open session. Is there a walking quorum? Have the city fathers, thus council people and so forth and so on, have they violated the Texas Open Meetings Act and had clandestine meetings behind closed doors, unannounced to the taxpayers, to make a decision that they're going to sick this attorney on the five of us, just like Carlos Valdez went after us? Now, when you're in the real estate cartel and you got money for you and your friends at risk, then I guess you can use an attorney that's willing to stick their neck out at this level and go after the five of us for money just to maintain your face. Okay? So that's my question. When was this discussed with the city council and the city attorneys and the city manager and the taxpayers in general? I don't remember any such thing. I keep up with what's going on down there at that circus all the time. All right. When did they meet to discuss the city attorney's statements? Okay. Again, when did you people meet to allow this man to make such blatantly blunt and asinine statements to the Caller Times reporter? I want to know, folks. I really do. I want to know how long this has been in the mix. Okay. Now, it's incredible to me because on April 28th they had the hearing. On the 30th, the opinion was rendered, and then on Friday, the city attorney's making comments to the Caller Times, which was reported on Saturday. Now, something is real bad wrong. Something stinks to high heaven down there with that stuff. Okay, I would think that some of these city attorneys would keep their mouth shut until the taxpayers speak, because you damn sure not speaking for me, Mr. Risley or Risley, whatever your name is. Okay. And I think I'm going to point that out every day for your whole tour down there as the city attorney. Okay? So when did you guys meet? Who sanctioned his statements in the Caller Times? I want to know which one of our elected officials did that. Okay? Because the taxpayers need to know come the next election cycle. And it's going to be a big change in status around here. Okay? Is this city attorney as illiterate as former city attorney Carlos Valdez when he couldn't read the plain English in the city's contract with A&R Demolition? I mentioned that a minute ago. I mean, I don't consider myself to be a journalist. I'm not an English scholar, but I do know how to read, write, add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Okay? So you need to figure out down there, city council members and city attorney, that people are not as stupid as you think they are. Now, just because they're apathetic and won't go out and vote and voice their opinion, that doesn't mean they're stupid. So I'm here on my quest to stir them up and say, no moss, we've had it with you bozos down there and bozettes. Okay? All right, now, city now wants to spend $5 million for shade. They tore down a $20 million structure. For $1 million, they could have re-roofed that freestanding roof down there. That was the architectural significance of that roof. It was freestanding and had an acre's worth of shade down there, and it was already plumbed with bathroom facilities. The plumbing was already in place. So now why do you want to spend $5 million to go down there after you got your fannies whipped with Destination Bayfront? And that ought to tell you how many taxpayers really enjoyed you tearing down the Coliseum. And I think you're in for a rude awakening down there, city council members. I'm here to warn you. I'm not threatening you by any stretch of imagination. I don't threaten anybody. I just make statements of fact. I'm going to stir this taxpayer base up into a frenzy. One more time. It was my signs down there that had no Destination Bayfront, and it said on the bottom left of it, paid for by G. Sansing and others. Okay. The bond was stated to be only for the reroute, which is an abortion, as I just said. So why can you now go back and start building shade and stuff for the Bayfront Park, or whatever you're terming that thing now? It's insanity out there, taxpayers. Okay? Okay, and then I've got sworn affidavit that A&R demolition workers were working at night during the court-ordered halt in that, and working at night, still stripping that building out. So how many people want to go into contempt of court when that information comes out? I also still maintain the asbestos samples I took. When the building was taken down, they showed meticulously how people were in hazmat suits and all, the A&R demolition people scraping that roofing off that had mastic in it with asbestos. And then they said, we've got to do this meticulously. And as soon as they got clearance from the 13th Court of Appeals to yank it down, they collapsed the whole half of that building over there. And there were mastic and asbestos flying everywhere. And then I alerted the state to that, and they came down 2 weeks after the fact, after it had all been cleaned out, and said, no, there's no problem here. Now, folks, I've got microscopes and so forth personally that I can determine whether there was asbestos flying around the streets down there. I've got it on videotape in addition to that, if you would like to see that. And if the city wants to go ahead and open that can of worms, then I think the damages are going to be on the city side and A&R demolition, not the Friends of the Coliseum. Then we have Jack Gordy, who has blown the whistle on an Americans with Disabilities Act that was written back, I think, in 1990. It was around 1993 when palm trees were noticed in the middle of sidewalks, and that the sidewalks over here at this shopping center on Airline and SPID were deemed to be illegal. And then this same person, this Mr. Risley or Risley, whatever his name is, has given Mr. Gordy the runaround when he said that the city had a lifetime exemption from not having to comply with ADA on those sidewalks over there, which is an untruth. And Mr. Gordy's been asking time after time after time for the paperwork upon which Mr. Risley has based those statements. And I know that in June, the ADA is going to come in here and probably sanction or fine the city for this because they will not do the right thing. And he still contends, this new city manager, that they've got the stay of execution on that exemption. And it's just not true. Okay? So when we get fined with that, I think the city council members and the city attorney and the rest of the crowd down there needs to pay that bill. Okay, pay for that fine. But it's total insanity down here, folks. I doubt that these attorneys can read, and they certainly don't have any sense at all that I can see. No common sense, and they have no allegiance to you, and you're paying the freight for their salaries, for crying out loud. So why don't you start screaming to your city council and come to our meetings, folks. We've got the first Saturday of every month at 2 o'clock, usually at the Small Planet Deli at the corner of Staples and Saratoga, and come down to our board meetings for the Taxpayer Association and get involved, and then start jumping up and down. And then Mr. Gordy also uncovered the fact that between January 1, 2014 and December 31st of that same year, that the city paid out to outside attorney firms, this is outside of the city of Corpus Christi, over $3.5 million in attorney's fees. And it's my understanding, I need to confirm this, that the last I heard, we had 21 full-time attorneys working directly for the city of Corpus Christi. And you mean they can't handle that stuff? And why are we paying that kind of money? And for what? And I'm going to go ahead and find out. So, folks, this whole thing stinks. It really does. And then there's some other problems we've got. But now this quest to put in a bayfront park down there and continue on piece by piece with the, quote, Destination Bayfront project. And there's some funny money that went on there too. Some of the stuff that was used by Mr. Trey McCampbell and his group, the Destination Bayfront proponents, and he's tied with a big bank around here, and he's also my boss over there at Del Mar College. He's the president of the Board of Regents, and he's asleep at the wheel over there. We're being ripped off big time with write-off by Del Mar. I'll discuss that on the next show. Or watch South Texas News and Reviews. You can look that up. That's also at 9 o'clock on Monday currently, okay? And then again 9 o'clock p.m. on Tuesdays. So you can watch that show. Now I'm winding down. I've got just a minute to go. But I'm really quite concerned about this, and I just hate to see you taxpayers out there have to pay more money and have some of the Friends of the Coliseum go back and let's see if the city can cover my expenses for defending myself against a city that can't read a contract. And now we've got the 13th Court of Appeals that backed us up, and the city's still going to go after us. Well, all I can say, folks, is just bring it on. Okay, this is I know how to play that game. I've been there, done that before. So just want to let you people know about the Friends of the Coliseum and the 13th Court of Appeals, who said that yes, the city should be able to read a contract, and that no, there were no damages incurred by the city, so therefore we don't owe them a dime. So let the city prove differently, okay? So thank you, 13th Court of Appeals, for your reasonable outcome with that and opinions and so forth. And all I can say is with that, and Dr. Bruce Olson's 13th Court of Appeals with Del Mar, their opinion, then things are looking up in Corpus Christi, Texas, and at Del Mar College. So I've got 13 seconds to go. If you need to email me, it's gsansing@gmail.com, and I'd be real, pleased to hear from you. Let me know what you think.